Good morning. Welcome to worship with Southern Hills Christian Church here in beautiful suburban Edmond, Oklahoma. My name is Chuck Marshall. I'm the Director of Communications and Technology. I'm joined by the Reverend Dr. Rob Crawford, pastor here at Southern Hills Christian Church. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Chuck. Good morning, church. A beautiful day it is. You can definitely tell we are getting deeper into summer.
Indeed. The temperature outside is starting to be in the 90s at this point.
Just warming up, and look, Chuck, I was going to try to keep my collar button just like last week.
Glad you caught it early this time.
Yeah.
So, I guess being a child of the 90s, you have all sorts of jokes about the 90s.
Hey, Chuck, what did the 99 sheep say to the one sheep? Or is it the one sheep said to the 99?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard this joke. So, if you tell me, I'll know. What did the sheep say?
Bye-bye.
That is so bad.
Hey, man, you know, what can you do? It probably is not as bad as yours from last week. Something about a plane ride to Cancun or something like that. Cancun.
Costa Rica.
Yeah, whatever.
Speaking of jokes, this is apparently a true story, but also a physics joke. At least I hope it's a true story, because that would just make it better. It took place just outside of Munich, Germany. The physicist Werner Heisenberg went for a drive and got stopped by a traffic cop. The cop asked, "Do you know how fast you were going?" Heisenberg replied, "No, but I know where I am."
That's funny. Why is that funny?
Heisenberg uncertainty principle. You can't simultaneously know both your speed and location precisely? No?
Guess not. I've always dreamed about getting a degree in physics. Perhaps that would help me understand that.
Really?
Yeah, you seem surprised.
Well, I sort of am, as you don't seem to have a solid grasp on physics.
It's true. That's why I want the degree, thus needing to know how these things work.
Well, let's try this one out.
Plus.
A neutron walks into a bar and asks, "How much for a drink?" Bartender replied, "For you, no charge."
Ha! Now that one I get. I still remember drawing the neutrons, electrons, and protons in the 8th grade.
All right, so you ever hear this one? The Higgs boson particle walks into a church. The priest says, "We don't allow Higgs bosons in here." The particle responds by saying, "But without me, how can you have mass?"
Now we are getting closer to my field of expertise, but only because you said church. So no mass because...
Because the theory goes, the Higgs boson particle is the physical proof of an invisible universe-wide field that gave mass to all matter right after the Big Bang, which then caused the stars and planets to form. So without the Higgs boson particle, we wouldn't be here.
Whoa.
Scientists refer to it as the God particle.
Whoa, now that's why I wanted a degree in physics, so I could learn about the God particle. Then we could really talk about God-given science.
Yes, God-given science. For those who think the world is 8,000 years old, God-given science may be hard to accept.
True that.
For all of us who believe that faith and science do not stand in contrast to one another.
And I'd say that's a majority at Southern Hills Christian Church.
I agree. For me, it is in trying to get my mind around the Higgs boson particle that the term God-given science is most useful. Seriously, I think the HB particle could easily be the method through which God created the universe.
Wow. Just wow. Well, thanks a lot for making us think hard before we get to worship, Chuck. Seriously, though, the intersections of science and faith is one we don't talk enough about. It makes me think of the series I wanted to do on the quadrilateral, which is an understanding developed by our Methodist friend John Wesley that explains that Scripture and tradition influence our faith, as do reason and experience. So, our life experiences inform our faith, and science aka reason, being God-given, also inform our faith.
All right, then. Good luck with your physics degree.
Yes.
In that vein, here's a softball pitch.
Okay.
Joke about physics.
All right.
Why can't you trust an atom?
Oh, hold on. Hold on. I think I can get this one. Why can't you trust an atom? Why can't you trust an atom? Is it because they make up everything?
You got it. Nicely done.
Woo! Speaking of go, we better get on the move. I believe I've already seen Russ posting comments in the chat room. Russ, we're going to ask for comments here in a minute, but go ahead and scroll up if you want to see what Russ's announcement was. I didn't see it. I just saw it go down. So we better go. Speaking of go, it's time for our second installment of the SALT's Theologian's Almanac.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to our friends over at SALT. This section is teaching us a great deal. So for the week of Sunday, June 28th, we start with June 28th.
Genius. The 28th, starting on the 28th. Physics lesson, perhaps, on quantum physics?
Denied. Back to the almanac. Today, June 28th, 2020, is the 51st anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising in New York City.
Indeed it is. Happy Pride, people.
Happy Pride. The Stonewall Rebellion was a galvanizing and symbolic event in the struggle for LGBTQ rights. It was the year 1969. The police raided the Stonewall Inn bar on the pretext that they were selling alcohol without a liquor license.
Which they were.
But it was the third raid in a row on a Greenwich Village gay bar, and this time, the outraged patrons didn't disperse, but rather gathered on the street and actively resisted the police. The ensuing unrest lasted 5 days and inspired activism around the country. On the first anniversary of the uprising, the inaugural gay pride parades were held in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago.
In fact, Chuck, it's the 50th anniversary of the first parade, 51st anniversary of Stonewall happening. The leading activists, were people of color. The Stonewall Inn, as you said, was in Greenwich Village. It was a dark, seedy, crowded bar, and as you said, operating without a liquor license, or at least that's why they were pinched. It was a gathering place for young gay men, lesbians, and transgender people. And as the police entered the Stonewall Inn, arresting employees, roughing up patrons, clearing the bar, and in accordance with New York criminal statute, which they actually apologized for last year, they started arresting people not wearing at least 3 articles of, get this, Chuck, gender-appropriate clothing, whatever that is. They took several people in custody, and it was in the third such raid that people decided they had enough. Police brutality and excessive force were just commonplace. But nonetheless, 2 people of color, and if you think of the date we're talking about, you want to talk about putting your life on the line. 2 people of color and members of the queer community, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, led the Stonewall Rebellion. Marsha was an American gay liberation activist and a self-identified drag queen, known as an outspoken advocate for gay rights. Johnson was one of the prominent figures in the Stonewall Uprising, with her friend Sylvia Rivera, born July 2nd, 1951, who lived until February 19th, 2002. And she was a Latina American gay, transgender rights activist, prominent as an activist and a community worker in New York. Rivera, who identified as a drag queen as well, and Sylvia participated in demonstrations with the Gay Liberation Front, with her close friend Marsha Johnson. Rivera co-founded the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, a group dedicated to helping homeless young drag queens, gays and youth, and trans people, a need which still exists today. And all of that was in response to that night that the Stonewall Rebellion galvanized a movement led by 2 people of color. Apparently our great American experiment has been long in formation. And I have faith that someday we will be a more perfect union.
Just goes to show that people of color have been leading the way for quite some time, while we as a nation have come to terms with what we understand as that great American experiment. I think we mentioned a story about the Boston Tea Party a few weeks back. And there are plenty of other examples we can point to.
There absolutely are, but we better keep moving on to June 30th, the 160th anniversary of a formal public debate over the theory of evolution at Oxford University in England, held by the British Association for the Advancement of Science. Darwin's book, I'm sure we've all read, On the Origin of Species, had just disappeared. No, it appeared the previous year to immediate controversy. The distinguished biologist Richard Owen and a vocal critic, as well as Samuel Wilberforce, the Bishop of Oxford, with Owen's help, they were on the pro-Darwinian side, and they had serious objections to the book. But on the pro-Darwinian side were several scientists, including Thomas Henry Huxley, and also, and why this is being included, several theologians, including Baden-Powell, a mathematician and priest. It's too seldom remembered that theology has been on both sides of this debate from the beginning. And by the way, by most accounts, the pro-Darwinists won the Oxford debate.
I guess the pro-Darwinists were the fittest.
But
Thank you.
yeah, so bad. So bad.
On to July 1st, the birthday of French novelist George Sand, who was born Amandine Lucille Aurora Dupin in Paris. And I hope I did not butcher it.
Dupin, you'll have to ask your son.
Yeah, or Geraldine.
Geraldine, oh yeah.
Born in Paris in 1804. Growing up, she was educated in the English convent in Paris, experienced a conversion, and decided to become a nun. Other girls dubbed her Saint Aurora. But when her grandmother heard about her plans, she promptly withdrew her from the school. Writing under the pseudonym George Sand, she became a prolific writer and a scandalous public figure, wearing men's clothing, smoking cigars, and falling in love, including a relationship with pianist Frédéric Chopin. Looking back on her life, she put it this way: "The world will know and understand me someday, but if that day does not arrive, it does not greatly matter. I shall have opened the way for other women."
And indeed she did. Moving on to July 2nd, it's the birthday of Hermann Hesse, born in Claude, Germany in 1877. In his mid-30s, he traveled to India and studied Eastern religions, which inspired his novel Siddhartha, about the early life of Buddha. He said, "The world is not imperfect or slowly evolving along a path to perfection. No, it is perfect at every moment. Every sin already carries grace in it."
So much to learn from other religions, and so much in common.
It's true.
On to July 2nd, the birthday of American lawyer, activist, and Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1908. As a lawyer, Marshall made the argument in the landmark Brown versus Board of Education case in 1954 that the doctrine of separate but equal was a contradiction in terms. Equal, Marshall insisted, means getting the same thing at the same time and in the same place. In 1967, Marshall became the first African-American appointed to the Supreme Court. Well, Rob, I think that winds up the week of June 28th.
I think it does too. I hear some people are having difficulty with their audio. We're aware of it. We were almost, of course, to July 4th, which is a part of the week of June 28th, but we're going to do that next week.
Okay. Let's see. So, are we going to talk about the question that we have, the significance of being a Christian?
So, folks, next week and Sunday, when we will be treated by a few congregants sharing in the sermon time as they address the question, what is the significance of being a Christian in the United States today? Sorry about that. Thank you, Chuck.
No problem. I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes together.
Me too.
We also have some reading of Emma Lazarus's poem on the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, we will. I guess, though, it's announcement time. I see we're pushing it. From the Reverend Sarah Combs, who is currently in the Rockies with her family on a much-deserved vacation. She wanted us to know that VBS is open. The Reverend Combs teamed up with others around the region who also had to cancel VBS. This is an intergenerational VBS designed for families to do together. And you can get it, and we'll drop the link right after worship. And
we also need to mention birthdays.
Wait. Also, I got an email from Georgia Shaw, and she writes, "Dear Rob, would you ask for volunteers for the next breakfast weekend? A lot of people are going out of town on the 4th, and I can't be there because of my COVID-19 exposure. Jill is taking charge this weekend, but will not be able to do it next weekend. We served 40 people this weekend. We need a shopper, an in-charge person, prep people, and help in the kitchen on Saturday and Sunday." I assure Georgia that would happen. So folks, if you heard that, if it stirs your heart, let us know.
Okay, glad you caught that, Rob. On to birthdays. I just want to mention one in particular, and that is Betty McIntosh.
Yes, Betty.
And if I'm not mistaken, she turns 95.
Yeah, 95, 94. I bet you. I think when you get in your 90s, you want it to be on the higher end or the lower end. I don't know. But happy birthday, Betty. Any other birthdays out there you folks want to tell each other online? Happy birthday. Okay,
so I think that we need to move on to our announcements from Mary, and also we have one from Debbie Bond. Brian, can you go ahead and roll those?
I hope.
This one is 1D, Mary.
Got it. Sorry.
Good morning, Southern Hills. I am Mary Hirsch, moderator of the Leadership Council for this epic year, 2020. The Leadership Council met last night, and I am delighted to report that we unanimously approved the search committee's recommendation of Reverend Dr. Robert E. Crawford for the position of minister for Southern Hills Christian Church. Chuck, push that applause button, will you? Rob has been our interim minister since December of 2018. He has a Master's of Divinity, served as senior pastor for 16 years, associate pastor for 2 years, and as youth pastor here in Southern Hills for 4 years. He serves on the Commission on Clergy and is part of the Bethany Fellowship, which feeds his own spirit. Rob has proven, as our interim minister these past 19 months, his deep spirituality, his understanding and love of the Scriptures, compassion for people, and right now especially, his resourcefulness and accommodating attitude. Rob has expressed his love for Southern Hills and has some exciting dreams to turn into reality with you. As was announced 2 weeks ago, and again last week, we need to have a congregational meeting for you to cast your ballot to approve or reject the recommendation of Rob Crawford for our settled pastor. Now, how to have a congregational meeting? Well, in these unprecedented times, we have to be creative and flexible. Ballots were mailed to you along with a pre-addressed and stamped envelope. Today at 12:30, after worship, there will be a Zoom meeting for discussion purposes, should anyone have questions or comments before casting their ballots. The Zoom link was emailed out last week. Now, if Zoom meetings are not comfortable for you, please remember the Leadership Council and your elders are always only a phone call away should you have concerns or questions. It is very important that you put your ballots into the mail as soon as possible. We will wait 10 days for those ballots to be returned to confirm the count and report back to you the results. In spite of this pandemic, Southern Hills Christian Church chooses to thrive. You choose to love God. You choose to love yourself gently. And you choose to reach out and love and feed those you don't even know. This church is the most amazing community, and I am proud and humbled to be in family with you. Thank you.
Dear Rob and Chuck, the Outreach Committee will once again be supporting the Hope Center of Edmond during the month of July to refill their food pantry and help families in need. Our Outreach Committee volunteers supporting this effort are Cindy Treadway, Evelyn Elliott, and Jan Little, with myself and Marilee Hattendorf assisting wherever needed. We would like to set up to have donations left on the round table in the gathering area, similar to where the items for the Navajo Nation were left. I will bring a sign, grocery sacks with list attached, and extra flyers to the church. So grateful for all you do. Debbie Bond and the Outreach Committee.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Debbie.
Let me interject real quick here, Rob. If Mary, would you please put that link to the congregational meeting into the Facebook chat so that people can get to it?
Just cut it and paste it. And if anyone else out there has announcements they would like to be a part of the service, Russ, put them on here. Just paste them down right now. Or during the week, if you get them to us in advance, we'd be glad to incorporate them with videos like that, or you can come in and record one. As we get ready, we got 2 minutes to worship. Keep an eye out for arrivals and say hello to those as they get here.
All right. I think that's it. Keep an eye on that clock, and we'll see you shortly.
See you at 10:45.
Words of preparation.
And they announce.
Good morning. Welcome to worship with Southern Hills Christian Church. Welcome to worship with Southern Hills Christian Church. The peace of Christ be with you. Today is Sunday, June 28th, 2020. This is the 16th day, 16th Sunday, since we've started worshiping via #SHC 1045 service. On Sunday mornings at 10:45, or some of the times after the fact, we worship online from wherever we are, gathering around our makeshift worship centers with our Bibles, candle offerings, and our various elements for communion. Southern Hills Christian Church is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. As such, we are part of a movement for wholeness in a fragmented world. The Christian Church Disciples of Christ is an anti-racist, pro-reconciling church. At Southern Hills Christian Church, our vision is that Jesus Christ calls us to be a faith community that nurtures all people in spiritually transforming relationships with God, others, and all creation. All are welcome. Our connections with one another give life and empowerment as we seek to be part of God's love transforming our communities. Thank you for being here and for your continued support. May the ties that bind us give us holy strength and gracious wisdom. May it be that our time in worship reminds us of our blessings as children of God who are loved just as we are. Thank you for being a part of HCC. Your presence makes our community more complete. Thank you as well for sharing your abundant blessings with us. Your generosity helps make our mission stronger. SHCC tithes what we receive. That is to say, we give 10% back to God in the form of supporting other ministries of the church as well as outreach. We know that when we share our blessings, they multiply. Thanks be to God. For all who have gathered in this space, we pray that God's blessing would be more fully known in your lives and in the lives you touch. We give thanks for our friends and family who join us from Chicago and Denver, Kentucky and Arkansas, and everywhere in between, of God, created in the image of love. We come seeking to remember, reclaim, and recommit to following the ways of Jesus. So come, beloved ones, come as you are, in your solitude, with your family,